I once dated a super rich second gen, didn't mind that I was broke, would get mad and defend me. He'd even kiss me on a private airstrip, like all in. I thought that was love, until his first love came back to town. Tossed away the gifts I'd given him, totally wrapped up in her. I got the hint and vanished that day, and I stayed gone for 5 years. Shouldn't he be happy? Why did he cry? Senior job fair day, I saw Larry again, all suited up. He looked amazing, surrounded by people. My dorm mates were buzzing about it. Everyone wanted to join Ross Air, all cause of Larry. Can you believe it? He's just 1 year older than us. Larry's 23, heir to the airline, like, legit second gen in the industry. Aside from that killer status, he's also just a total knockout. Ridiculous body, perfect features, tiny face. Last year, Ross Air hired a bunch of male celebs for PR, but Larry totally outshone them on stage. Everyone says Larry's the best ambassador for Ross Air. I looked over, seeing him calmly answering questions. Not the Larry I remembered. He was sharp, cold. His pretty lips only ever spoke words that hurt. My dorm mates kept chatting. Check out campus beauty, practically throwing herself at Larry. Don't they see his girlfriend right there? Helen's stunning, like made for him. I heard they go way back to childhood. Talk about a perfect pair. Don't you think Anna kinda looks like Helen? Suddenly it was about me. Do I look like Helen? More than just a little. Otherwise, how would a broke kid like me, from some rural backwater, have caught Larry's eye 5 years ago? He'd tutored me personally, teaching me about airplanes, and he'd kissed me on a private airstrip, gave me a dream, just because I looked like her. We moved to the questions and answers session. My attention-seeking dorm mate shot up her hand first. No real question, just wanted to say, Helen, you're super pretty. Helen gave a sweet smile. Thanks, hope everyone supports Ross Air. Oh, and by the way, my dorm mate added, I've got a friend who looks a lot like you. All eyes turned to us, including Larry's. Larry's gaze lingered our way. I pretended to tie my shoe, my heart pounding. Thankfully, my dorm mate didn't push it. Things moved on. Someone asked, what kind of people does Ross Air avoid hiring? Larry immediately replied, show-offs. Everyone paused, taken aback. Larry calmly explained, I personally don't like show-offs or liars. If I meet such candidates, I instantly reject them. Do you have a phobia of these types? My ex was exactly like that. The room buzzed with gossipy whispers. Until the end of the event, everyone was talking about Larry and his mysterious ex. Nobody noticed. I tossed the Ross Air leaflet out, silent. My dorm mates were from the flight attendant program. I was in the aviation tech track. Basically, I'm a pilot. They all wanted Ross Air, but competition was fierce. The whole flight attendant program was prepping for it. My bold dorm mate, Linda, was closest to me. Before the written test, she sighed, Anna, I'm so jealous. You're a shoo-in for Ross Air. Why's that? Because you're the only girl in your track. Plus you're top of the class. Ross Air would be silly not to have you. Maybe. Female pilots aren't that hot in demand. No, you've got it wrong. Women have slightly weaker physical abilities than men. For you to be top, you must have worked way harder. Even I know that. Ross Air can't overlook it. I chuckled, but I'm not aiming for Ross Air. What? Why not? She was shocked because Ross Air's perks were unbeatable. Who'd pass up top pay? I said, I'm shooting for other airlines. Linda gasped, you're crazy. The pay Ross Air offers pilots is beyond dreams. Which airline can match that? It's not about money. Didn't mention that part. I sent Linda into her exam, walking alone on campus. The sun was gentle. Looking back, 8 years ago, when I first met Larry, it was this kind of weather. I came from a far-off village, birth name Betty. Parents died when I was 10, left no savings. It was just me and grandma. One day post-middle school exams, a famous director showed up in the village, said he was filming a documentary, tracking rural kids moving to big cities, running for 3 years. City families were set, just needed the right village kid. The principal's mom recommended me. Before leaving, she drew me aside, looking serious. Betty, know why they chose you. You're top of your grade and a girl. You gotta get into college, get out of here. I can't teach you much more, but there's better teachers where you're going. Really learn. Grab this chance. Got it. Got it. Curious, I asked. Why do you call me Anna, when everyone else calls me Betty? Because Anna sounds nicer. She looked at me, pity in her eyes. First time to New York, and flying. I got super airsick. The director laughed. Can't have that. They're into aviation, you know. I shook my head. These planes you see, all theirs. Looked up, a giant jet was taking off. Intense wind rushed past, setting my heart racing. That breeze blew into my teenage years, changed everything. Ross Air's chairman's family adopted me. They threw a fancy welcome party in their big mansion, gave me tech I'd never seen. Even though it was my welcome party, I was the quietest, most out-of-place person there. But soon I spotted a kindred spirit. A teenage boy, dressed in black, watching me from the second floor. I'd never seen a boy that good-looking, nor eyes as cold. That was the first time I met Larry. Larry's an only child, the sole heir to Ross Airlines. He didn't like me, probably thought I was too low rent or something. I ended up at his school, in his class even. He ordered me to act like I didn't know him at school. Honestly, I didn't need to be filmed every day either. The filming schedule was all around Larry's dad's timetable. His folks were pretty busy. Most of the time, it was just me and Larry at home. We wouldn't talk, making things super awkward. Our relationship thawed after the first round of monthly exams. I flunked the exams, and the teacher made me read my essay out loud. My essay was boring and a bit childish, which made everyone laugh. I felt awkward and embarrassed. At home, I hid in my room and cried, until Larry kicked open the door. I thought my crying bothered him and he was mad, but he threw me a piece of candy. "Finish it and come to my room." "What? Just come," he said, sounding bored and a bit impatient. It was toffee. Never had it before. Unwrapped it, put it in my mouth. It was sweet with a tangy twist. After that day, Larry started tutoring me and even taught me about airplanes. By finals, my grades had soared. I saved up my pocket money to buy Larry a little bird keychain. Larry sharply commented, "This ugly chicken." "It's a bird," I corrected without much confidence. He smirked just a bit, just once, but it showed me a softer side. He clipped the keychain on his backpack. "Thanks, Betty." We got closer over time. His grades were decent, and he kept helping me with schoolwork. And I figured out why Larry changed his attitude. He was just lonely. His parents had him on the back burner. Before I came, a nanny was the only one waiting for him after school. Larry's initial hostility was because he thought his parents would love him even less now that I was around. Then he realized I became his one true companion. When he had a fever, I braved the snow to take him to the hospital. Through his appendicitis, I stayed outside the OR. The surgery ended, but his parents didn't show up. On his 16th birthday, they promised to come back, but they stood him up till midnight. That night, he was outside smoking, untouched food on the table. House rules said no smoking, but who cared? I wanted to comfort him, but I wasn't good at pretty words. In the end, I just pulled him out for a midnight bike ride. Larry, usually chauffeured, rarely biked. We rode through the streets, embraced the night wind, felt free. I told him about country life, taught him about crops. Looking at the sky, his dark eyes gleaming, Larry said, "One day, I'll fly a route right to your place." We were young. Our feelings were pure and strong. From 15 to 18, we'd always been together. Some guys at school mocked my accent. Larry punched one, and no one bothered me after. I had to smile for the cameras, cramps and all. Larry, just outside the frame, kept my hands warm. After finals, Larry showed me his coming-of-age gift, a private plane. The hangar was so close to the sky. In the sweeping wind, Larry kissed me. Everything was set. We'd go to the same college, graduate together, then marry and have kids. So, when did it all go sideways? Maybe, when I saw Helen's picture. A familiar voice yanked me back to the present. "Are you here for the interview too?" I looked up to find Larry in front of me, studying me. I had just come with Linda for a Ross Airlines interview. For a simple job interview, Larry was there in person, and he noticed me. I shook my head, trying to keep cool. Because of my pollen allergy, I wore this big mask, hiding almost all my face. I used to be underweight, looking like a bean sprout. Now I'm tanned, got muscles, like a solid pilot should be. There's no way he'd recognize me, right? But Larry frowned. "What's your name? Where are you from?" The room went silent. I didn't answer, thinking of a plan. Just then, Linda walked out of the interview room and heard him. "My roommate's from some mountain place. Her name is..." Barely started, and Larry looked intense, grabbed me. Betty, he asked, urgently. Linda was confused. No, she's Anna. I took a deep breath, saying, "I'm Anna. Is there something you need?" "Anna, yeah." He didn't buy it. So I pulled out my student ID to show. The ID had a picture, but it looked nothing like me, so I wasn't scared. Larry still wasn't convinced. "Can you take off your mask?" "No way." Linda thought I was in trouble. Her pollen allergy severe. That's why the mask. "We're just students. You saw the ID." Larry realized he'd overstepped. He mumbled an apology, but his eyes stayed on me. Even as we walked far away, Larry stood, watching. Linda rubbed my wrist, apologizing. "Did he hurt you?" Larry was so rough. "It's fine." Linda didn't know, so I didn't blame her. But could Larry have figured something out? Hope I'm overthinking. Someone like him wouldn't be hung up on a stand-in. 5 years ago, I knew I looked like Helen. It was late August, 3 months into being with Larry, his birthday was coming up. I saved to buy him a branded hoodie, but his dad called me aside that day. "Betty, are you dating Larry?" I happily replied, "Yes, uncle. We both got into university and I don't agree." His forceful tone shocked me into silence. "You and Larry don't belong in the same world. I'm paying for your education, not to have you seduce my son." "I didn't seduce him. You two are nothing." He cut me off again. "Betty, I think you're a good kid, but you'll never be the daughter-in-law of our family. I won't allow someone without background to join us, and neither will Larry. He's young and just having fun." Is this the real face of capitalists? Completely different from their image on camera. To be honest, the reason we adopted you was for a public image, a charitable act to enhance Ross' brand. You've enjoyed New York's education, and got into a top university. You should be grateful, and not reach for things that aren't yours. His coldness frightened me. I stuttered, but Larry is serious. Serious? He laughed, spinning his office chair, and tossed a stack of photos on the desk. "Look at this girl, Larry's childhood friend. They've been close since they were kids, and Larry adores her. Her family is in the aerospace materials business. A perfect match for us. She just went to study high school in the US before you arrived." That was my first time seeing Helen. We looked alike, but she was more beautiful. I felt like her substitute. A buzz filled my head, leaving me confused. "I don't want to upset you, but Helen is back now, and you need to know the truth. I've treated you like a daughter, and this is for your own good, to prepare you mentally." His mix of kindness and firmness had a tight grip on one's heart. He added, "I like sensible kids. Think about your grandma and your favorite principal. What would they think if they knew you had a bad reputation?" I understood the underlying message. It was both a warning and a threat, but it wasn't his words that ultimately broke me. Returning to the villa, I wanted to ask Larry to clarify everything, but before I even got to the door, I saw the stunning beauty from the photos. Helen had come to celebrate Larry's birthday. She was even prettier in person. They chatted happily, and the sweatshirt I gave Larry in the trash can. What happened next was straightforward. I ended it online. Amidst his busyness, Larry sent a 2-word reply. Reason: "I'm tired. The documentary's over. I'm not useful anymore." I wasn't trying to show off. That discarded sweatshirt held my last bit of dignity. "Larry, Betty, I was just part of your show in New York. Think what you like. I can't help it. Yesterday you said you liked me. Was that a lie too?" "Yes." I wanted to make him mad. He didn't reply again, but the more I thought about it, the more upset I got. I typed a bunch of messages, questioning why he treated me like a stand-in and discarded my gift. My reply was a red exclamation mark. He had deleted me. Just great. My Instagram account was set up by Larry, filled with private school alumni, all elites. His father's words made me realize I shouldn't force myself into a world where I don't belong. So I deactivated the account. I was supposed to enroll at the university, but gave it up and decided to repeat the year. A university wasn't my first choice anyway. I wanted to get into aerospace university, harder for someone like me, who's frail. After a year of hard work, I got an early offer from them. Later, I changed my name, started working out, and lived the life meant for me. Funny enough, the documentary never aired. They feared it would cause rural kids to feel unbalanced, so it got shelved. Not airing was all right. I thought meeting Larry was just a coincidence. A few days later, I went to the department office to pick up my job recommendation form. As I opened the door, the teacher wasn't there, only Larry was sitting inside. Why is he always here lately? Competing for jobs must be intense. Picking up the recommendation form, Larry looked at me intensely. "Come here." I adjusted my mask. "The teacher's not here. I'll come back another day." He handed me the form. Stuck in a dilemma, I slowly moved towards him. Up close, I noticed the bird keychain I gave him still hanging from his car keys. It's been years, and it's already changed color. "Sorry about the last interview." He recognized me. "Not considering Ross Air, top of your class," I whispered. "I've applied to another airline. I can offer triple the salary, but I thought the other airlines suit me better." Larry paused his pen, looked up slowly. "Where's better suited than Ross Air for you?" For a moment, I thought he had a hidden message. As I took the recommendation form, I turned to leave. Larry suddenly lost control and grabbed my shoulder. "Running away again? Think I can't recognize you, Betty?" The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. At this point, I sighed and took off my mask. "It's me. So what?" Larry's eyes were dark with suppressed anger, like he was furious. "Quite the stunt. Dropping out, deactivating Instagram, disappearing. Who taught you all this?" I didn't answer. "You were in New York all these years. but never came to find me. Why would I? We're not close. 3 years living together, not close. Larry narrowed his eyes, closing in on me. He's changed over these 5 years, a commanding presence now. I wasn't afraid at all. Instead, I looked up and smiled at him. Larry, there are cameras here. Step any closer, and I'll charge you with harassment. Larry frowned. Betty, you've changed. I haven't changed. I've always been like this. Disappointing, isn't it? Larry didn't say much more. He took out a folded registration form from his suit pocket. Come to Ross Air. After training, I'll arrange for you to take the commercial pilot license test quickly. No way. Don't be stubborn. Larry said patiently. The past 3 years saw many flight cancellations, leaving pilots stranded without work. Now, the exams are backlogged for years. I still refused. For someone like me, who loves showboating and lying, I'm not fit for Ross Air. Besides, I've already committed to another airline. Larry wanted to persuade me again, when his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Helen. I obediently closed my mouth, but Larry's first words on the call were, I found her. What? Helen was a bit surprised. I found Betty. Larry was looking directly at me. He had it on speaker. The girl I ran into the other day, that's Betty. Oh, I see. Helen's voice sounded a bit down. Helen, after the presentation, you said you'd checked out all the girls' profiles for me. Larry paused for a moment. You said none of them were her. Were you lying? I'm surprised. Their conversation was so sharp. Larry really had changed, colder and less empathetic, not even sparing Helen's feelings. Helen stammered, maybe I missed it. Missed it? The only girl in the flight program. Plus, you'd know it was her from the picture. Larry, are you blaming me now? She asked. Just reminding you, Larry replied flatly. If you're here to be my assistant, you need to do your job. He hung up. I caught the gist. Seems like on the day of the presentation, Larry got suspicious because of what Linda said. Helen had volunteered to check the girls' profiles for him, but she told Larry she couldn't find me. Helen lied. She might have even hidden my profile from Larry. But the thing that blew my mind, you asked your girlfriend to look for your ex. I couldn't help but ask. Larry looked at me, puzzled. She's not my girlfriend. Couldn't get the real deal, so came back for the stand-in. Larry added, Helen and I are just friends. Won't be anything more. Whatever, I said casually. It's none of my business. My attitude seemed to sting Larry. Betty, after you disappeared, I've been looking for you. I haven't dated anyone. You were my only girlfriend. Get to the point. He softened, saying, I like you. I want to get back together. Larry's confession came out of nowhere. I obviously turned him down, but he wouldn't give up. He said he'd try to win me back. I just found it funny. I landed an offer from another airline and started pre-job training. Larry was relentless, always finding excuses to have dinner or hang out with me. I agreed to everything. I even picked up a stray cat. Knowing I'd be away a lot, I asked Larry to take care of the cat. He held the cat gently and asked, Betty, will you come see it often? Of course, I replied with a smile. Just make sure you take good care of it. I'll be checking. Larry was thrilled. He saw it as a sign our relationship was improving. But he didn't realize that was only my first step in getting back at him. In November, our company had a mixer with Ross Airlines. Simple stuff. Tour each other's headquarters to give everyone a break. Larry personally came to host us. We trainees were quite surprised he showed up. Everyone was flattered. After a day of touring, Larry came over to me. Hungry? How about a piece of candy? Toffee? Just like when I was 15. Thanks. Tired today? He asked. Probably not as tough as training. Training's balanced. Not too much pressure. No pressure, it's just. I hesitated, meeting Larry's soft, focused gaze. Blushing, I softly asked, Larry, if a girl calls a guy every night, can he tell she likes him? What do you mean? He was taken aback. I'm just scared to confess. Afraid we might not even stay friends. Larry froze, all color drained from his face. Betty, do you have someone you like? I nodded and said, yep. The cold November wind rushed through the window. Larry stood there like an ice statue. I waved my hand. Never mind. No need to bother you with my little love troubles. Before I finished, he pushed me into the office behind us, plunging the room into darkness. Larry had locked the door. The curtains covering the floor-to-ceiling windows were drawn, making the room dim. He pressed me against the door, eyes filled with turmoil. Betty, tell me you're lying. You haven't fallen for someone else. I never expected such an intense reaction from him. I really have, I replied. Not lying. There's a guy among my fellow trainees, Evan, totally my type, with a great build, too. We're in that flirty stage. Larry didn't believe me, so I pulled out my phone to show him. Like, I tweeted yesterday, really want to see a sunset. 5 minutes later, Evan posted a sunset picture. 3 days ago, I tweeted, what's your wish today? Evan quickly shared a song called Want to See You Again Today. These little secret flirts, each one made Larry's eyes almost pop out in disbelief. Hugging me close, he almost trapped me in his arms. So why have meals with me? He asked. Wouldn't let up if I didn't. And why did you ask me to care for the cat? You've got money. You can afford the best cat food. Larry gritted his teeth, finally facing reality. Betty, you played me. I laughed. How could I? I see you as just a friend. Just a friend pushed Larry over the edge. Right then, voices came from outside. Where's Anna? Wasn't she just here? Can't find Larry either. Maybe they are in the office. No way. Larry never lets anyone in his office. They had no idea how close we were inside. Larry holding me tightly, asking fiercely, just friends do this. Larry trapped me in his arms, our breaths mingling. Both of us had candy, leaving a sweet scent in the air. Then, the doorbell rang. Larry, sorry to interrupt. Have you seen our trainee? I held my breath, not daring to make a sound. The trainee said, let's go. No one's inside. Larry, however, tilted my chin up. If I open the door now, what do you think will happen? Wait, I think I heard something. It was Evan speaking this time. Anna, are you there? Larry's grip tightened. He was smart. He'd guessed from the names. Betty, is it him? Evan paused. Was there talking inside? Larry was about to say something. I suddenly wrapped my arm around his waist. He was slim and muscular, and he froze. But I just leaned in to whisper in his ear. Say one more word, and I'll never forgive you. Larry kept quiet, but he looked even angrier. I had to threaten him like this because of Evan. Evan didn't get an answer and left with his people. I finally let out a sigh of relief when their footsteps faded away. Larry's eyes were filled with anger, as if he'd been wronged. Betty, what did I ever do to you to deserve this? He asked. What right do you have to ask that? I lashed out. Once the show wrapped up, your parents kicked me out like I was nothing, just a tool for their show. And you, Larry, I might be poor, but I have feelings. I truly loved you, and all I got was your game playing. What? Larry frowned, looking confused, angry, and shocked. I've loved you so much over these 5 years. And you think that was just a game? His question stunned me. He didn't seem to be acting. What's going on? Weren't you treating me as Helen's stand-in? Who said that? Who the hell said that? I saw Larry's face show something like a breakdown for the first time. I never liked Helen. Where'd this stand-in thing come from? Your dad said it. Him? What did the old man say? I gave him a rough summary of his dad's words. Larry's face grew colder. He's full of it. Yes. I grew up with Helen, but she's lived abroad mostly. We're not even that close. Now I was the one who was shocked. But on your birthday, Helen came to celebrate with you. She was just visiting and brought some gifts. She didn't even know what day my birthday was. I studied his expression closely. It didn't seem like he was lying, and he wasn't a trained actor. But you threw away my birthday present, the hoodie. Mentioning that really annoyed me. It was the last straw for me with Larry. Larry didn't explain. He just opened a small closet in his office. Inside were some clothes and a pull-out sofa bed. And the hoodie I gave him was prominently displayed, well kept and spotless. This is the one you gave me. I frowned, but I clearly saw. I got 2 of the same hoodie. Larry said, my mom also gifted me one. You threw away Auntie's gift. Yeah, Larry grinned ruefully. She bought the wrong size. She doesn't even know what size I wear. I was silent for a moment. So what's the deal with you and Helen now? After she graduated, she was put into Ross Air by the old man as my assistant. He likes her family's business and wants to arrange a marriage. What does Helen think? I remembered their phone call. Helen seemed into him. She confessed to me 3 years ago, Larry admitted openly. I was shocked, because I thought we were just childhood friends. She said she liked me, but I rejected her right then. I wanted to move her from her assistant position, but she called it unnecessary. She said she got over it, and there were plenty of others that matched her status in her circle. I believed her until you showed up. Now I understood. I hadn't seen Helen since that call. She must have been moved, but I was still confused. We look alike. She's even prettier than me. Why choose me? Is she prettier? Don't think so. Larry took the hoodie and compared it on himself. 5 years had passed. He was no longer that boy. Suits suited him more than hoodies. Betty, I like you. It has nothing to do with how you look. He reminisced, his gaze slowly falling. My parents never cared for me. Those 3 years of high school were the happiest of my life. I liked going home with someone after school, fighting for the last piece of meat at meals, and seeing your light on at night through the window. I really like you, and only you. Larry's eyes glistened with tears. He seemed on the verge of crying, and he bowed his head, as if to hide. At this moment, He looked just as he did when I first met him, isolated, cold, and yearning for love and to be loved. We spent some time clearing up other misunderstandings too, like why when I broke up with him, he quickly deleted me. Turned out that day, while his dad was having a heart-to-heart with me, his mom visited him. His own mother rarely opened up, talking about me the entire time. She claimed I was there just for show, trying to get attention from this family, accusing me of having ulterior motives for dating him. Larry didn't believe her at first, but then she showed him a video clip. It was a behind the scenes from the documentary, where I admitted coming to New York for other reasons, for money. Larry was shocked and a bit disappointed, so he was heated and agreed to the breakup. He regretted it that very night, and tried to mend things, only to find I'd deleted my account. He asked his family about my whereabouts, but no one knew. When college started, he searched all over but didn't find me. Finally, a teacher told him I never enrolled. Larry even visited my hometown, but I wasn't there. I was retaking courses that year, prepping for exams with my principal mom in a different city. Later, I changed my name, making it impossible for him to find me. With all these ups and downs, Larry sighed deeply now. I've figured it out. Even if it's for money, it's fine. I have money, come to me. I'd be willing to be used by you in that way. I shook my head. The video was edited. I was in it for the money, but because the producers promised to pay for my grandma's medical bills and donate books to my old school. Larry stared at me blankly, murmuring, "So that's it, that's it." But I said softly, "You all broke your promises. Grandma's gone. The school couldn't keep going. Such a shame." In the end, neither the film crew nor Larry's family kept their word. When my grandma was critically ill, those at the top shut their doors on me. I really was just a tool for their show, wasn't I? The one thing I'm relieved about is that I listened to the principal, my mom, and didn't waste the opportunity to study. Larry looked pale and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know about this. If I had known, I would definitely." No if, it's all in the past. Now, we're like the school and grandma, we can't go back. This was my final answer to Larry. 5 years is a long time, long enough to change someone. Young love, once fresh, is now just a regretful sigh. I've seen the world for what it is. I'm not foolish enough to think love conquers all. Larry's dad at least got one thing right. Larry and I are not from the same world. Ending on a good note is the best outcome. I feel a bit guilty for the way I got back at Larry, but just for a second. If he's in turmoil, then he's in turmoil. My suffering wasn't any less than his, but who pities me? Plus, I had refused him long ago. It was Larry who couldn't let go and brought this on himself. But I didn't expect that even after this second rejection, Larry would still not give up. In December, Evan got sick, and I went to the hospital to be with him during his 4 treatment. While picking up meds, I unexpectedly ran into Larry. He suddenly called out, "What's up with you?" I said, "I'm fine. Evan's got a fever." Larry's expression cooled. "And he had you come here. A hospital is full of sick people. Isn't he worried about passing it to you? Doesn't he care about you at all?" I replied, "Don't make wild guesses. I chose to come." Larry didn't look any happier. "Do you care about him that much? Enough to risk illness to be with him?" "None of your business." I kept going about my task. Larry followed me everywhere I went, until I couldn't take it anymore. "Larry, stop following me. Look at me." We locked eyes for a bit, and I was puzzled. "If you're fine, I'm heading out." He finally seemed to deflate, looking all dejected and sad. "Why don't you ask why I'm even at the hospital?" I suddenly noticed, yeah, he didn't look too good. Larry was hoping for some concern from me, but all I said was, "I'm with Evan now. I have a boyfriend, so I can't worry about you." Larry understood the underlying meaning. It hit like a knockout punch. He just stood there, frozen, the color draining from his face. "When?" he asked. "Yesterday." He didn't say another word, just stood there like it drained all his energy. I stopped paying him any attention, and went back to Evan. Evan was great, gentle, and ambitious. He's the most handsome guy in our batch. It just worked out that he liked me too, so it was natural for us to be together. Seeing I took a while to return, Evan asked, "What happened? Did you run into someone?" "Larry from Ross Air." Evan asked casually, "You guys close?" "He came by the office for you a lot." "Not really," I said. "He just wanted me to join Ross Air, that's it." "Why didn't you go?" Evan seemed curious. "Isn't Ross Air your dream airline?" "It isn't actually," I replied. Evan sounded a bit envious as he said, "I wanted to go to Ross Air initially. They pay well, but they are so strict they didn't take me." I just smiled, saying nothing more. After that, Larry stopped coming to see me. Linda, though, kept me updated on him. Linda had become a flight attendant at Ross Air, and got along well with some higher-ups. Anna, did you hear? Linda said all excitedly. Larry and his dad aren't getting along. Looks like he's trying to take over. I was surprised, but then thought, yeah, that's typical of Larry. He always had issues with his dad. This was bound to happen one day. And, Linda added, there's gossip that Larry's heartbroken. He's all twisted up inside, asking the new assistant about being someone's lover after drinking. Wow, he really can't let it go, I said. Who on earth is the girl who got him like this? Helen, maybe, I guessed. Nope, Larry straight out denied it. He and Helen were never a thing. It's gotta be someone else. Wow, you guys are always up to something, I responded. It's your fault for not coming to Ross Air. By the way, how'd your assessment go? I felt a pang of sadness. The final exam for the license had started, but I wasn't on the list this time. I couldn't understand why. I'd been first in everything during training. So why did they pick others? Linda cheered me up that whole night. With her encouragement, I decided to confront them. On the day of the test, I dropped Evan off at the exam hall and then went straight to the leadership to get answers. Initially, my leader was polite. Test spots are limited. You'll get your turn next time. I just want to know why I wasn't chosen. What's the criteria? I asked. That's the decision everyone made. Hard to explain in a few words. It's fine, take your time, I prompted. Soon I'd gotten on his nerves. The leader slapped the table and said, the guys go first for exams. Women wait in line. I was stunned. Why's that? Obviously, men are more suited for pilot roles, longer career spans, and they're not fussy. That's bias, I protested. I've been to every training without missing a single one. I never called in sick and finished more than anyone. How can you judge us like this? What you say doesn't matter. Women get married, and you might quit and stay home. Who dares to hire you all? I was speechless. I never imagined it would be such a dumb reason. I felt I was always behind, and I studied so hard to catch up. I managed to leave my village and become first. And yet, here I was, pushed to the side. Why? For over 20 years, I'd never cried despite hardship. But now, I felt an overwhelming grievance, and tears fell uncontrollably. My leader threw me out. As I wiped my tears, I caught someone in the corner of my eye. Larry was leaning against the wall, looking chill, like he heard everything. Betty, he called. Aren't you going to hit him? Hit him? His outdated, narrow-minded views won't change with words. Only force would make him remember. But he's your leader. What if I had your back? Larry said, his eyes steady. He was right. If I stayed quiet, more women would face this discrimination. I couldn't actually hit him. That wouldn't be right. I grabbed my water bottle, turned around, and splashed it all over my leader, ruining his gelled-up hairstyle. He pointed at me, hurling insults. Larry came in and steadied my trembling shoulders. Go tell your bosses that the trainees you sent for assessment today were all rejected by Ross Aviation, he said. The leader looked at him, terrified. Larry, he stammered. Larry pointed at me and stated, this female pilot, she's ours now. The leader smiled obsequiously. Larry, sit down and let's talk this over. Larry replied sternly, you don't have the right to speak to me. Make sure your boss personally delivers Anna's file to Ross Aviation by tomorrow. The board leader couldn't smile anymore. He realized the gravity of his mistake. I sat by the roadside, feeling despondent, not wanting to speak. The winter wind chilled me to the bone. Larry kept talking. Starting today, take a break, but it won't be long. As soon as we receive your file, we'll arrange for you to join. Although there might be an assessment process. I felt defeated. In the end, did I have to rely on Larry? What was the point of my efforts then? Larry seemed to understand my thoughts. He sat down beside me, unbothered by the fact he was wearing a tailored suit. He took something out of his pocket, peeled it, and put it in my mouth, a toffee. Just like the one he gave me when I was 15. Betty, how do you view the safety responsibilities of an airline pilot? He asked. Carrying the lives of all passengers on your shoulders. Exactly. That's why I wouldn't make exceptions even for you. I was taken aback. Larry's expression was serious and sincere. I'm bringing you on board, not out of personal ties, but as Ross Aviation's manager, after reviewing your past achievements. I believe losing a talented trainee like you is a loss for Ross Aviation. Larry continued. I want to bring you back, but I won't trade a pilot position for your favor. No matter the relationship, I can never entrust passenger lives to someone unqualified. You're joining because your scores were high and you excelled in training, not because of any connections. As for the regulatory assessment, I promise Ross Aviation will select candidates based on performance, not connections or gender. I gradually lifted my head. At that moment, a plane flew overhead, leaving a beautiful trail in the sky. I murmured, I want to fly. Larry smiled warmly. Ross Aviation welcomes you. Larry kept his promise. After my file was sent to Ross Aviation, I went through strict exams and evaluations before officially being accepted. On the day I got the offer, the first thing I thought about was breaking up with Evan. I wanted to share the good news with him, but never got the chance. Evan was excited. He'd received his commercial pilot license. It meant he could finally fly commercially. I was happy for him. But then Evan asked, "Anna, are you going back to the airline?" I hadn't told Evan about Ross Aviation hiring me. I wanted to surprise him with the news after getting the offer. I was thinking, since you'll be flying a lot, maybe you could stay home, and we can get married soon and have a couple of kids while you're still young. He seemed to be seeking my agreement, but he was very sure of himself. "Evan," I said, "during training, my performance was better than yours. So what? I got the license first and will become a captain before you. My salary will cover our expenses. If you cut back, it'll be enough." I couldn't believe my ears. How did I not see this side of him before? We'd only been together a month, and now he wasn't even hiding it. "Oh, right," he added, "we're the sole male descendants in my family, so we need to have a son." He kept assigning me tasks. I threw my tea in his face, a move I'd found increasingly convenient since using it on the bald leader. "Are you crazy?" Evan shouted. It was he who was crazy, yet I felt incredibly calm. I didn't work my way from a rural village to flight school, and all the way here, just to be your baby maker. I stood up, slung my bag over my shoulder, and walked out. Right before leaving, I remembered something. By the way, I got into Ross Aviation. I walked away from Evan's stunned expression. I joined Ross Aviation, becoming colleagues with Linda. I still needed more training, waiting for the next regulatory licensing exam. Meanwhile, Ross Aviation was undergoing leadership upheaval. Larry gradually took control from his father, introducing his principles to the company and ensuring equal pay for female and male pilots. He also engaged in genuine charitable efforts, unlike his father's conspicuous philanthropy, and rebuilt a school in my hometown to offer education to girls. This was just the first one. Soon, more girls' schools began appearing across other impoverished villages. The following fall, I obtained my commercial pilot license with top marks, officially becoming a female commercial pilot. From muddy village paths to airport skylines, the journey took nearly 24 years. But it wasn't over. I began accumulating flight hours, aiming for the captain's seat. At 26, Larry's father was completely sidelined. He never saw it coming. The pitfalls he'd met over the years had been set by his own son. One day, passing by the office, I overheard a heated argument. Larry's father had aged. Even hair dye couldn't mask his grey roots anymore. "Larry, I'm your father. Why do this to me?" he asked. Larry replied, "Have you ever thought of me as your son?" Larry smiled faintly, devoid of emotion. "You never celebrated a single birthday with me, never attended a parent-teacher meeting. Where were you when I had surgery? With your mistress? Did you ever think then that I was your son?" His father was about to protest. Larry continued, "When you spoke harshly to Betty, did you consider that she was your son's first love? Someone he really adored. You never treated me well," Larry declared coldly. "So why should I treat you any better?" When Larry walked out of the office and saw me, he looked a bit surprised. "When did you land?" "An hour ago. Got here early today. Did you know that?" He smiled but didn't say anything. "I get it, though. He's been quietly keeping track of my flights for 2 years, like clockwork. We've grown up, gotten more mature. No more love or no love talk like we used to. We're more than that now, co-workers, friends. We see each other often, grab meals together, but we don't talk about getting back together. Instead, we discuss routes, flights, city lights. There's just so much in life that's more important than love." Larry has stayed single. I know he's still waiting for me, quietly. Time flies. 7 years just passed like that. In those years, I logged 2,700 flight hours, passed all the tests, became a captain. On my 31st birthday, Ross Air started a route from my hometown to New York. Larry personally gave the command, appointing me as the first captain of that flight. I brought my principal mom to New York, making her among the first passengers. Linda was the chief purser for my maiden flight. It was all smooth sailing at first, but halfway through, we hit some extreme, unexpected weather. The turbulence was intense, making the flight super tough. To say I wasn't scared would be a lie. I had sweaty palms. The instructor behind me saw my stress and encouraged me, but the weather just got worse. Panic started spreading. Linda connected to my comms. I could hear the chaos in the cabin. "Anna, you nervous?" A familiar voice cut through. Linda's been my best friend since freshman year. We're still hustling together. She knows me too well, could see right through my anxiety. "Don't be nervous," she said. "This is just pressure. Not like you can't fly. You're a new captain. Your mindset hasn't fully shifted yet. Remember, you are top of the class. Nobody's better than you. Whether it's continuing to fly or an emergency landing, I'll be waiting for your command outside. Right, the weather got a little worse. Suddenly, I remembered my childhood. In the mountains, this kind of weather was common. No matter how bad it got, I never missed school. The year I repeated a grade, my school nearly shut down. Money was one reason, but the other was no students left. Principal Mom said that the other girls had all gotten married. I can't forget her look of disappointment. She took me away from the village, helped me with my studies and tests, even named me Anna. She said, "You must spread your wings and reach the skies for those girls. I carry their hopes, thousands of them. So, giving up isn't an option here." I pulled myself together and discussed with the tower and crew carefully. We all agreed the flight could continue. So I called Linda. "Keep flying, just 2 words." Linda exhaled with relief. "All right, I'll handle the cabin." I knew she was scared too, but she chose to be my backbone, fighting alongside me. Linda's voice came over the cabin speakers, calming everyone. "Trust the captain," she said. 20 minutes later, I finally broke through the clouds, catching a glimpse of sunshine. The airport sat right next to the town near our village. After a successful landing, cheers erupted over the tower broadcast. Once all the passengers were off, Linda's nerves broke, and she hugged me, crying hard. "Okay, let's go," I said. After she'd cried enough, we fixed ourselves up, put on our hats, and got off the plane. When I stepped into the airport, I was taken aback. These folks lined the hallway. Some were passengers, others were family members. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, stewardess." Their shouts echoed all around. At that moment, it felt like all my efforts were worth it. Principal Mom's hair was now gray. She was as happy as a kid, telling people, "Look, the captain is my student. She's our village's first female college student." And right at the end of the hallway was Larry. His eyes were red. In his hands were flowers and a birthday cake he'd had ready. We locked eyes. It felt long, like from when I was 15 to 31. All our past moments flashed like a movie, yet disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Youth is like that piece of toffee from when I was 15. Its sweetness stays with me. My young man is no longer young, but is still by my side. Surviving this ordeal made everything clear. I smiled at Larry, and he broke down, tears flowing. He rushed over and wrapped me in a tight embrace. This time, amid everyone's cheers and teasing, I held him gently too.